Welcome to episode 40 of 100 Years of Marine Corps Tankers, a channel that was created as a way to honor the lineage and history of United States Marine Corps armored community. Through these interviews, the stories of Marine tankers will remain the test of time and will not be forgotten. This week features the author of Unfortunate Sons. It is a book that is written by Sergeant Joe Tyson as a recount of the 17 months of deployment and many combat operations of Company B, 3rd Tank's 3rd Platoon. It serves as an in-depth look at the life of a tanker in some of the toughest of times. Welcome to the channel, Sergeant Joe Tyson.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on today. Hey, Joe, before we start getting into the book, I'd like to take a moment and reflect on the many changes that you've personally witnessed to the tank community. And this kind of starts all the way back to your experiences while serving in Cuba and what later became known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. What was it like, and did you have a perspective of the magnitude of the events transpiring right under your feet?
Yeah, I had did some research on it before. We went down there. We went down there down on the sea. 5 tanks from Alpha Company, 2nd Tank Battalion, and it was kind of interesting. Like daily, we do patrols on the ridge lines, out and back and forth all day long, and you could see the. What surprised me was the amount of the Russian infantry they had there, and then of course with the Cuban communist troops, and I took in how they reacted, and first time I ever saw a communist trooper.
Certainly wasn't the last, though.
No.
So let's get into the book. I really found it interesting about how the book kind of came to be. And I read that you stated that it kind of started with you telling the stories to families and friends. And then a lot of people have been telling you for a while that you need to write a book. And it finally came to be. But what I found to be most striking about it is the level of specificity of the days and even hours of these operations. There are so many amazing stories in the book. Let's start with a few of the early ones. When did you know for certain that you and the platoon were going to be going to Vietnam?
After about maybe a week or two on Okinawa, we were at the Camp Hansen with all the force troops there, and word came over we were going south. They never told you anything where you were going or anything, but until you got there, then you knew where you were. And it was just so surreal. Once we left Okinawa, we went down on the USS Vancouver, which was a LPH, and with contingents from 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines, probably a battalion of them, or a brigade, probably a brigade, because they had named that operation was the 9th Marine Expeditionary Brigade, and that's where I got the expeditionary ribbon from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have a true perspective prior to going over what it was going to be like and what it potentially could be like?
No idea.
No idea. Okay.
I mean, the whole time I was in tanks and in the Marine Corps, we always trained for a conventional war with Russia. That's all it was. That was in Gitmo. That was it when we were at Lejeune. If we were in the field, it was all conventional. Cold weather training was all conventional. We were up at Fort Drum, New York, for a month with a company of Marines from the 6th Marines at Lejeune also, and it was all conventional warfare. No mention of the the coming Vietnam War. the I think most of that really started right before or right at the buildup, which was when we landed there, March 7th, 1965,
Okay.
Beach 2, and it was funny the night before on the ship, or the morning of when we landed, they give you a steak and eggs.
Hmm.
Now, I read a lot of books about the Marine Corps in the Pacific, and they always talked about the steak and eggs on the morning of a landing. And I said, man, this isn't going to be that kind of landing. I think everybody was thinking the same thing.
Hmm.
And it wasn't. It wasn't. There was a lot of photographers there, some military, some civilians, media people in their forget them suits they wore, them blue summer suits.
Mm.
But there was Vietnamese. I think they were students. They were wearing the Vietnamese women. They had these like I guess dresses they wore. The students wore all white. Um, Single people, women, wore two-tone colors, and the married women wore a tone color. And it was called the owl's eye.
Mm.
And the women, that's what they wore. That was like their dress-up dress.
Okay. What billet were you on the tank during the landing there?
I was a driver.
Okay.
I was supposed to be the tank commander when we were in Okinawa. Got in a little trouble, and I got busted from corporal to lance corporal, and you had to at least be a corporal and E4 NCO at that time to be a tank commander.
Okay.
And so the picture in my book, the one on the cover and in the book, is actually Bravo 31. That's the tank I was on.
Mm.
That's actually me driving that ashore. I got that through the military channel, the video. And it wasn't soon after that I became the tank commander of that same tank, Bravo 31.
Mm.
But I did a stint of time on the blade tank,
Okay.
which I had never been on a blade tank before. And I was kind of like looking forward to it because I wanted to learn how to operate one of them.
Right.
And when I got shipped over there, the tank commander was Sergeant. He was a Sergeant E5, Sergeant Reed.
Mm.
Big, huge black guy, but just like a great guy and a great sense of humor. We got along great. He was, he became a good friend to that. And the blade they used, well, first of all, up at the Da Nang Air Base, was probably the most heavily fortified line in the whole Da Nang area.
Mm.
And we went up there a few times. We had to clear jungle and brush away for the infantry, their holes and their bunkers. We'd clear a field of fire for them to enlarge their field of fires. We did
Mm-hmm.
we did that a few times, and then we also did that at battalion. 3rd Tank Battalion, which was Hill 327, when they first got there was in July. The majority of 3rd Tanks, July of '65, and I remember, digging some whole defilades
Mm-hmm.
for the tanks with the blade tank, and then clearing fields of fire, and then excuse me, and then the guns on it, you know, the 90 millimeter, the 30 caliber coax machine gun, and the 50 caliber would be used, you know, sometimes during the day and at night to help support the infantry there also.
When was your first kinetic event?
My first what?
Kinetic event. When did you first see combat?
Yeah, kinetic event. That's exactly what it was. It's more electrifying than anything else. No, we were at battalion. This was when I was still on the blade tank. It was right before I left to get my own to take over Bravo 331. In fact, I was on watch. I was on the forward perimeter, the upper perimeter at battalion, and they had tanks here and there all the way around the whole 360-degree perimeter. And of course, you know, the tents were in the back, you know, with officers' country and, you know, the offices and all the other stuff. Maintenance was back there as you came in from the other side. And we were at the very top, looking out over this valley. And I was on watch. It was I think it was the 6 to 10 or 11 o'clock, something like that. And it was my watch. And Sergeant Reed, we had a sleeping bunker behind the tank to the right, you know, so we could get out of that, in and out of our slot. And without running over the sleeping bunker. But anyway, I think it was around 10:30, 11 o'clock. It was real quiet, and I saw these flashes, you know, these orange contrails. To my far right of that corner, where there was a tank on the corner there also, and then there were some bunkers in between and around that, and tanks dispersed here and there. I saw the orange contrails. Right away, I thought, fireworks. It wasn't fireworks. They were 82 and 60 millimeter mortars that they dropped on us. And I tell you, the sound of that shrapnel and the noise was incredible. And the screaming of the shrapnel and the smells, the cordite smells, and it was just terrible, explosives. What I did, I turned the tube. We had a string we had to put down to the driver's compartment where the switch was to turn the electric on. Pulled that brought the electric system up. And there was canister and loaded in the main 90 millimeter. I traversed the turret around to the right. And what I had in front of the tube was a lot of dirt from when we were digging the whole defilade position. So I says, I can't fire. You know, that would blow up right in that mound of dirt, and then our sleeping bunker was right there.
Right.
So the 50 was already charged. So what I did, I turned it to the tank commander's cupola around. He had to crank it by hand. And I just started firing I could see the flashes of the tubes way down in this jungle below that far right position. But I couldn't fire the main gun. But what and all the time, these mortars are dropping all around us. They had the whole perimeter was pinned down. They were dropping 60s in the back where the tents all were, with the office posts and where maintenance was and everything. And I guess about that attack went on for about probably 45 minutes.
Wow.
It seemed like hours.
Right.
It was just an incredible, shocking experience, you know. And we had at least, from that shrapnel, we had holes in some of the toolboxes, the sponson boxes. You know, there was some as big as your fist, some as big as like a golf ball or a baseball. And lots of things from and small arms fire at the same time. A lot of ricochets and splatters. You know, as the bullets, the rounds hit the tank turret.
Right.
That was whizzing and jinging around with green tracers, some red tracers, some green tracers. And but the final outcome of that was, I think there was 11 or 12 wounded, and there was 3 killed. 3 killed outright. There was one guy was a first lieutenant. He was the acting XO then, and Lieutenant Krause. He got wounded extremely bad, and he died the next day at Charlie Med.
Wow, may you rest.
And there was two others. I think they were direct hits on the bunker.
Okay.
Because they didn't. All they had was the tank tarps for canvas roofs. They didn't have, you know, lumber and sandbags, and you know, that's what used to really concern me, because I, you know, thinking about that, there was a few times, at least one time, I got trapped in a sleeping bunker at a forward infantry post with the incoming mortars and machine gun fire, automatic weapons fire. But I get into that later. But that was I mean, there were small engagements before that.
Right.
You know, some snipers, you know, smaller mines. They were mostly AP mines. You get like in a quick firefight, you know. The RPG 1, I think it was. That was one of the rockets they used, and they were kind of slow. You know, if you were far enough away from them, you could actually see them. They come in right. You could see the contrail. If you had an alert driver, an alert tank commander, you could actually get out of the way of that thing. If he was in closer to you, didn't have a chance.
Right.
And if they hit like down lower in the outside of the turret, they would come right through. It would come right through. They hit near the top, they ricochet off. If they had the tracks, they could blow to, you know, some road wheels and damage the track. But they had one later on, was the RPG 2. We had a much straighter trajectory.
Okay.
Still had a contrail, but it was much straighter and quicker. You just had to cross your fingers with them. If they're, you know, I outrode a couple of them, but it also had some take hits on the tank.
I didn't know that you could outmaneuver an RPG. That's an interesting fact.
You could what?
I said I didn't know that you could outmaneuver an RPG. That is an interesting fact.
It's far enough away, yeah. Yeah, because very obvious contrail. It looks like this when it's coming at you.
Okay.
And if you're alert, you can get away from it. I had one hit the left rear fender. And it just skimmed up, and the fender was like sticking up in the air like this. That's straight, because it hit like the edge of the track and then just like went off right under the fender. And that was blown straight up in the air. That was one that got away. A lot of them, you gotta be lucky.
Right.
They used them a lot. And the mines got worse. They got worse. You know, every day they were getting more. By the time I left there, 17 and a half months, whatever the exact amount of time was, with 2 involuntary extensions for our whole platoon. Those mines were probably 50 to 75 or 80 pounds of TNT. And if they went off under the belly of a tank, say electrically detonated,
right,
they'd blow a hole right through. They'd blow a hole right through. And
did your platoon lose any tanks that way?
Bravo Company, in first 11 months over there, we had moved from once I left the Blade tank, I got sent up to Marble Mountain, where Bravo Company, third tanks, 5 platoons were out of that base right at Marble Mountain, and we were right next to the 9 Marine Regiment that was had a camp there. They were right at the base of Marble Mountain.
Okay.
They were actually mountains. They looked stuck out of nowhere. But I only saw my platoon there maybe once or twice. Our 5 tank platoon, gun tank platoon, only a couple times maybe.
Okay.
Always out in the field south of there, down in it was an area called the Horseshoe Lake area. There was actually where you turned in to go to the forward infantry position. There was a leprechaun, and right off the beach there.
Right.
And it was all children were there. And then you go by the leprechaun. You make the right hand turn to move into where the jungle started, and you have the leprechaun on the right. You'd have a village on the left. You cross like a road across a rice paddy, and then you hang a left, and then you're up on a plateau where that's where the company of the infantry were. Mostly 9th Marine Infantry, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, Bravo Company, Alpha Company, Charlie Company, and then they would change to maybe 2-9 would be there, and then we spent a lot of time there. We get hit there every night, guaranteed. We get hit, we get mortared, we get incoming fire.
I remember reading in your book an interesting fact about how you did a really good job of explaining how small the world really is. And here you are, guy from I think New Jersey, and then ultimately settled in Pennsylvania. But driving past a leper colony, seeing that nun out front, a nun would always wave to you. And then I think you told the platoon you were going to stop one day, right? And you eventually did.
We did. We stopped a lot. We used to bring sea rashes down here, and they really appreciated that. But the habits they wore were white. And you remember that show, The Flying Nun?
Yes.
That's the style they were.
Okay.
I didn't see any of them fly, but that's what they were. I asked her. She was French. When the first time I went there, I brought sea rations there. Had the loader bring them all over, and I asked her, "What is this? A missionary place?" And she said, "Yeah, it's a Marinal mission. They were based out of Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah, because one time we went by there, and I would see the kids out there with the nun. They'd be playing. They had like a bamboo fence around it, maybe 3 feet high, with a gate, and they all had Baltimore Oriole T-shirts on, because that's where the Marinal, that's where their headquarters were. But anyway, I asked her. Make a long story short, when I lived in Philadelphia, we lived on Argyle Street, Northeast Philadelphia. Our next door neighbor had a son named Bert Mellon, who was a Marinal missionary. And my mom used to send them donations, and they'd give this little pamphlet would come each month to tell them what they're doing all over the world and everything. And I asked her, I said, do you know a guy by the name of Father Bert Mellon? He's from Philadelphia, she says. She says, I spent 2 years at a mission in Africa with him.
Small world. Absolute small world.
When I was off high school, like we had a railing separating the two porches. And he'd be out there in a lounge chair drinking a beer and, how you doing, Bert? Good. How are you? Yeah. Never thinking that I would meet a nun.
Right.
Knew him in Vietnam.
On the other side of the world.
Out of the world, yeah.
Right. So let's get back to tanks for a moment. So when did you become the tank commander of Bravo 3-1?
3-1. Probably 3-1.
Right.
It was about 3 months after we landed in Vietnam. And I was on the blade tank about three months, and then I got transferred. They had made the guy who was the tank commander on Bravo 3-1. They made him the supply sergeant, and Captain Lee, that was our company commander. He told me, he says, "Get ready, you're taking over Bravo 3-1." He said, "I'll be on there for." It was his tank. You know, the first tank is the commanding officer.
Right.
He was only on one operation with us. All other time, I had that tank by myself.
Did you man it as a 3-man crew?
I forgot to tell you, when we went to the blade tank.
Right.
Just Sergeant Reed and me. And he drove that onto, I think he landed on a mike boat at Red Beach. He brought that ashore by himself. No crew.
Incredible. Just incredible.
So I get to the blade tank, and he's there. Well, I had made a field promotion to corporal. I made corporal back. And he says to me, he says, "Well, Corporal Tyson," he says, "I'm the tank commander of this here blade tank." He says, "You got to be the driver." Because I can tank command and load, but you got to drive. And then it was like probably a month before we got a driver, like the John Sakeley was a driver. You know, there's pictures of him in my book. Still in touch with him. He lives in Florida. But let me see. When I took over 3-1 at Marble Mountain B Company CP, it was like a constant, just day in and day out. We were south with infantry. We'd be to the west over near Hill 55 or Hill 22. We were out on Operation Starlight. We were at the lowest part of our assigned area of responsibility in the Da Nang East area. And the first major battle in Vietnam was Operation Starlight. The Marines that was on the Manton Peninsula, which is right near Chu Lai. And we were all the way at the bottom of our area of responsibility as a blocking force, because they were, and the Marines kicked their ass there. I mean, they kicked ass. It's where the first tank commander was killed there. Corporal Laylaw. Been in the Marine Corps Museum, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. You ever see that picture, that tanker right there, right in where you first walk into the area?
Yes.
The Vietnam. That's him.
Okay.
That was him. Yeah. That's why he's there.
Right.
First tank commander killed.
So Marble Mountain, where was it? Was it in Leatherneck Square? What later became Leatherneck Square?
It was an area they called Da Nang East.
Okay.
It was along the coast. It was about 20 miles southeast of Da Nang Air Base. And our sector was from Marble Mountain. Well, we did operations north of there too,
Okay.
above the base. But the first 11 months after I joined Bravo Company, or I had joined when I joined Bravo Company on Bravo 3-1. The first 11 months, we lost 15 tanks just from that one company.
Just incredible.
Mines, rockets, or 57 millimeter. And they had a hell of a time getting parts.
Hmm.
It just, it wasn't sitting right with me the way we were being supplied. And I don't think it was sitting right with any of the Marines over there, even the infantry, about what was going on there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just like, say 4, 5, 6 months in, it's like, we ain't getting nowhere. This is getting worse, and we're getting nowhere. We're killing many of them, but they just like the VC that were in the Nang East area, south of Marble Mountain and west, were decimated by the Marines there, especially the Bravo Company, First Battalion, 9th Marines, and they just kept sending in NVA to take their places. Pretty soon, you didn't see too many VC.
Okay.
It was mostly North Vietnamese regulars. Yeah. And the ARVN forces, they weren't. They were heavily infiltrated by the enemy.
Okay.
We were on one operation with them, and we took the lead. We were out with infantry from the 9th Marines, and the ARVNs were behind us. And we started taking fire from the rear. And we actually had wounded. The fire was coming from them. RCO says, that's it. Last time we're with them. And if we have to go, he says, they're going in front of us. We actually had wounded.
Wow.
Shot by them.
How did the tactics change from when you saw the VC to the NVA? Was it a noticeable difference in the way that they fought?
The VC were extremely disciplined, extremely, and they were really good. They were good. I learned a lot from them. The NVA were good, but they treated the South Vietnamese people horribly, and so did the BC, horribly. The people were nothing but pawns in the middle of everything, just like we were. The American infantry and supporting forces. There was no set plan. You know, there was no plan to win that. All they wanted us to do was keep the ARVN forces from losing. We could have held the South very easily, American forces. Let the ARVNs invade the North. Oh, they couldn't do that because we didn't want to have China come in with it. You know, that was the Johnson thing. But it just like there was no improvement in, you know, our losses, like tanks. We had 40% casualties. And the loss of tanks, and then very rarely do we have full crews. You know, it might be 3. If you lost a tank to a mine or an RPG or a mine, you know, until that was repaired, you usually would stay with your tank until it was repaired. No such luck there. No, you were sent wherever. Like you could be a tank commander, and you may go into a tank in the second platoon that needed a driver, and you were a driver, or they may have needed a loader. So you were tank commander here, but you're a loader where they sent you until your tank was repaired, or if you were waiting for a new vehicle.
Okay.
But it was the constant of the whole thing, you know, with line companies, almost every single day, occasional breaks, and I tried to put that forth in the book with like a lot of repetition,
Right.
Because that's what it was. It was like yesterday or today, it's just like yesterday. And the next day was just like the day before. Only they kept getting worse and worse. But we weren't getting anywhere.
The book does cover quite a few operations, and the level of specificity, like I mentioned earlier, is just phenomenal. What are some of the more notable operations that come to mind when you think of?
Okay, the name combat operations that B Company, 3rd Tanks, 3rd Platoon were involved with in Vietnam was there's a total of It's a total of 12 named operations. It was Operation Starlight, August 65, Golden Fleece, September 65, County Fair, September 65, Operation Snatch, October 65, Harvest Moon, December 65, War Bonnet, January 66, Independence, February 1966, Montgomery, 1966, Keyland Campaign, May 1966, Liberty, July of 66, Macon, July of 66, Hastings, July of 66, and that's the operation I left on, Operation Hastings. Operation Hastings was the whole Marine, the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force, which was the 3rd Marine Division reinforced. It was like a division and a half. So they couldn't say called it division. So they named it the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force. It had a really cool patch. It's like red with a dragon with a Roman numeral 3 there. It's pretty neat patch. But Operation Hastings was the whole Marine Amphibious Force moving north towards where they had the Hill of Angels. We were there before it was really bad, but then that's when I left. But I don't want to jump ahead, but Operation Hastings stopped when they got to the hill fights, which were just south of Quezon.
Okay.
And then on to the Tet Offensives of 1968. That was Operation Hastings there was a fight every night and there was a fight every day.
How did you prepare for it?
Well, let me back up a little bit, because that's actually in the chapter called I called the chapter My Bizarre Exit from Vietnam. And if you want to come back to that, because that takes me right to the end of my time in Vietnam.
Right.
To go back and recapitulate on some of the stuff that happened before.
Please.
Like trying when we first landed there, that was the most god awful hottest place I was ever at in my life, and the highest humidity of anywhere I've ever been in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Been a lot of places, but that was the worst. It was like hell.
Mm-hmm.
That's how hot it was. And then with the monsoon season, it would rain. It would rain as hard as you ever thought you ever saw rain in your life. Everything was flood. Couldn't move too much with the tanks. And then, say it's pouring like hell in the morning. At 2 o'clock, the clouds will break and the sun will come out, and it might be like 50 degrees, and you're soaking wet. All of a sudden, within an hour, the humidity is at 100%, and ungodly heat, like 110 degrees. It's ungodly. And the bugs, the mosquitoes, they were the biggest. Everything in Vietnam, from the centipedes, like a centipede in the States here, it's like little silver brown thing underneath a rock about this big. It's got a little hair on it. They were 2 to 3 feet long.
Nope.
They were deadly poison. Everything was like prehistoric. The snakes, big snakes. They had the bamboo crate snakes, which were as thin as a pencil, bright green color. They used to hang in the bamboo forest and in the jungles. And your vehicle, you'd be coming through thick jungle, and you had to hope you don't get hit, because you had to inflate the bladder around the turret that you use when you're making sea landings.
Right.
Much, if it gets a little deep, not too much water comes in. Because them snakes would drop on a fender and they'd go right through that opening. But if you had the bladder blew up, they couldn't get in. But then you couldn't traverse the turret, because you rip that. It's like a big inner tube inside there.
Right.
That happened one time on the blade tank. We were clearing some fields of fire for the infantry, and I was gunning. Sakeley was driving. Sergeant Reed was the tank commander, and I hear Sakeley say over the intercom, he says, "I think that was a snake." And I look down to my left under the 90, and there it goes, like that. And it looked like it was about this long, bright green. One bite, you get enough time to smoke a cigarette, completely paralyze your nervous system. We had no serum in there for it. No serum.
That's a whole lot of no. That's a whole lot of no.
But I got right the hell out. Sakeley he went out the escape hatch. That's how. And when I turned around, Sergeant Reed was already out, and he's standing on the back of the tank, and his eyes are about this big. He's there. Ain't my tank no more. That belongs to Nick. So that tank sat in front of that position, that infantry position there for 3 days, till somebody came out from FSR to get that snake out of that tank.
Wow.
Yeah, but
so you were talking about Hastings. You were talking about prepping for Hastings, and kind of my question for you was, as a tank commander, for particularly these named operations, how did you all prepare for it, and did you go through an intel package, operations brief? Was any of that formality there, or was it basically, here's a direction, go find the bad guys?
Well, no, there was. It didn't come in a packet. It came by word of mouth. Like, say we were we just come back from being out maybe in the bush for like a month with maybe the 7th Marines, down closer to Chulai. And we come back and we're there for a day or two, and then they say, tomorrow, 3 tanks are going down with Bravo 19 down to forward infantry CP. You'll probably be down there maybe 2 or 3 weeks. you're going to meet with the infantry platoon leaders.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give you the plan, and you advise them how the tanks could best help them. I know when we were training for the conventional warfare, what changed with that was the infantry usually went usually, I say, not all the time, but the infantry usually went in front of the tanks,
Mm-hmm.
and the tank or the infantry were the tank's eyes and ears.
Okay.
But over there, that changed right away. Tanks went in the lead with the infantry right behind us.
Okay.
And it was horrific. Let's say you're on line going through thick jungle, the line starts to snake because the jungle might be a little thin here, a real thicker over there.
Right.
And the line, sometimes you get ahead of the line. Sometimes you'd be a quarter mile ahead of them, and you had to stop and wait. And it was very dangerous because in the thick jungle, the VC, they had these things they call spider holes. They go down, they dig down, and they make such a sophisticated engineered top for them, perfectly camouflaged. It would take the weight of the tank. It could actually take the weight of the tank. And that's why I used to hear a lot of like infantry and other tank commanders saying, he says, we were right on them, and all of a sudden we turned around, they were gone. Oh, they were still there. They were in them holes. We'd be online in the jungle, right? You'd be getting a grenade every once in a while. They throw up on the tank, the infantry are hitting booby traps. Got wise to them, and I really learned. And here I got over. I stayed on the left side one day, and I saw one pop out, throw a grenade. You think I saw him? We had good optics. And I went up forward, and I radioed the infantry and told them what I was going to do. He said, I'm going to go up about 50 yards, then I'm going to reverse, and I'm going to steer the tank like this in reverse. And if they're behind, if I'm over them, it's going to dig the lids off them spider holes. And that's exactly what happened. I turned around one time. We're back. I'm telling the driver to keep working the wheel back and forth. The dig, let the tracks dig the lids up.
Right.
And I look behind us, and there's about 25 VC running, and the infantry are picking them off. They're coming up out of the holes because they don't want to get crushed.
Right.
We'd catch them a lot like that. Other times we'd be on line with them, with snake. We'd get ahead, all of a sudden, we'd get grenades here and there. You got to be buttoned up. Can't imagine what if a couple tanks got satchel charges thrown on them, and that was bad. Luckily, I never got them, but I got a lot of grenades. And then as we were moving forward, the infantry, we get mortared. 60 millimeter mortars or 82 mortars, plus automatic weapons fire. The only thing you could do was grab your map, see if there's anything out in front of you that looked like a valley or something, and just floor the tank and go for that top of that ridge. And a lot of times we caught them the mortar crews down here, and we blew them away. Stopped the mortar attack completely. Yeah, a lot of times that happened. A lot of times. But it's kind of scary if you're like even in medium kind of jungle, the infantry is like far behind you, and you feel like I'm gonna die out here between the heat and the bugs and the bullets. Just amazing. Amazing. You're firing 30 cal. You're firing. I had an M60 mounted on a tripod on top of the tank commander's cupola, because the 50s mounted inside sideways in the cupola were like useless because they were too slow. And while we were waiting for that infantry to move up on line or just behind us, I'd be firing canister all in front of me, all over the place, you know, because just waiting for them to come out of a hole and throw a satchel charge on you or something, you know. And if there's no place to run for safety forward, like a clearing or anything, all you can do is just stay there and wait.
That's some serious fighting. That's incredible.
It was different.
Yeah.
But there's so much in the book.
It really is. And going back into the book, there's a chapter that you'd titled "The Big One," and I found it to be really interesting. And I'd like for you to, if you would please, just kind of expound on that and retell that story for us.
Okay, now there was two pretty big ones, but this is the biggest one I was on when I was a tank commander. The other one happened when I was a gunner on I lost a tank and I was on a second platoon tank as a gunner. But the one, I hit a lot of mines with 3-1. Most of them were, you know, they blow road wheel off, you know, you fix it, you know, or track comes off, you fix it. But this one, we had been out overnight with the infantry, and the next day we had left from Hill 55. Figure with the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines that were over here at the time, and we swept the whole day before, and then that night we set in with the infantry in positions, and then the next morning we were going to sweep back in another direction, back to 55, and that's what we were doing. It was about maybe 10, 1100, and I hit a mine, and we got ambushed at the same time. And when I woke up, I was on the ground. I got blown right out of the hatch. So I got all the arthritis up and down this side here with my neck all mad. And I woke up and I couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't hear anything, you know. And Corman came up to me and he was talking to me, but I couldn't understand him. And what I was saying, I couldn't hear myself talk. Where's my vehicle? Where's my vehicle? And he started pointing. And then he says, that means I got to go. So I just started crawling that way, and I saw the antennas. That was down in the crater. And the crewmen were around, and I got up and I started walking. I was really in pain. You know, I could feel the contusions, you know, that were, right leg was like dark brown, bruised, shoulder, side. Crewman come up to me, man, you're okay. He says, 1 second you're there, next second you're gone. But there was minor injuries, ear damage, of course, you know. But that was I was actually the worst.
Man.
So they flew me to. There was a couple deceased Marines and a couple wounded on the same medevac. And we went to Charlie Med, and I got off. I could hardly walk. Pain. I go inside, and this doctor says, he says, get undressed and get in the rack there. And he says, we're going to take it. He asked me what happened, and I told him, he says, yeah, it looks like you really injured your right side.
Hmm.
He says, we'll get you for x-rays, you know. And so I go in for the x-rays. I come out, and he comes up to me. He goes, well, you're going to get a Purple Heart for this. He says, but these are bad contusions. He says, but these look like they're going to heal. It's okay. I says, you mean you're not going to send me like to the hospital in Okinawa or to Guam or Philadelphia Naval Hospital in Philadelphia? Oh no, he said, we already got calls about you from your company, Gunny. He's going to pick you up tomorrow morning.
Wow.
I flipped. The guy comes with a Purple Heart. I says, give it to them over there. Look how bad they're hurt.
Hmm.
You know, guys with no legs. It's a mess. Big mistake though, refusing it. I refused 2 of them.
Hmm.
But the next morning, Gunny comes, you know, the whole Gunny farmer, right? He drink a fifth of Jack Daniels for breakfast. He's a great guy though. Comes up, he's got the Jeep. I says, you're driving? I said, why don't you let the supply sergeant drive and you just ride?
Right.
So he says, Tice, he says, man, I made up like a little package here for you. You know, it's got some, you know, nice uniforms in here for you. New jungle utilities, you know. And I put a fifth of Jack Daniels in there in case you need some painkiller. And I said, did you make any peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for me, Mommy? Did you do that? He's there. I said, well, if you did, I said, just got to make sure you picked all the rat shit out of the bread.
And cut the crust off.
Bread was terrible. It's terrible. First, I thought it was seasoning.
Hmm.
I'm there, looked at it close. I says, that's rodent poop. So anyway, he took me to. He says they got and they had to give me a. They gave me a crutch. I said,
I get a tank with a crutch.
because I'm going back on the same operation I left.
Right.
And you know what he said? Somebody will give you a leg up. Oh, I was Gunny drove me from Charlie Meg, which is in Marble Mountain area, to Da Nang Air Base, or not Da Nang Air Base, the battalion, where I was meeting at. They were giving me another tank. They were giving me another tank. I mean, everybody lost so many tanks, you know. It was so confusing. It's like different crews. What's going on? You know, because you get used to working with one crew as one. You know, like the Kraken's tentacles. You know, is coming out from the crew as one. And it was just very confusing. And I mean, at least I was there with almost every tank commander I knew or crewman was stationed at 8 Company, 2nd Tank Battalion at Lejeune when I was there. Ended up in Bravo Company, either from the 1st to the 5th platoon, all through Bravo Company. I think that's what the CA wanted, because I tell you, I knew it was great being there with these guys because you knew exactly what they can do. You know, you knew the experienced tank commanders, you knew the ones that were learning. There was no guesswork. And it was great when you had your crew, when you had them. Hastings, my God. We let me just start with this. we were at the Marble Mountain CP, right? We had come up on operation that day, and we had been at the beer tent, and like me and my buddy of mine, Gil, another tank commander, and Bruce Heseltine. We were at the beer tent, you know, listened to music and just having some fun, right? And the gunny comes in, he says, Tyson, Gillum, and Heseltine. There's a first lieutenant over in the captain's office. Captain's not there, but he wants to talk to you about, because we were like almost going into our 18th month there straight with 2 involuntary extensions. He's here to tell you about your orders. And we used to bitch like hell to him, you know. It was like so frustrating because you never knew when you were leaving. It's like they forgot about you, you know. So we go up to the captain's tent, you know. He said, I smell beer. And I said, yeah, well, we had our limit. We're allowed to have 2 cans of beer a day. They gave us the beer, you know, 2 cans free. Of course, if you knew the supply sergeant, you'd give him like $5 in piastre money, and they give you like 3 cases. So he says, well, we got you 3. He says, you guys are tank commanders? Because we look like a bunch of 3 raggedy ex-Marines. Yeah. Yes, sir. And he says, here's what's going to happen. He says, we got a lot of new personnel coming, and we're going to try and keep them like some at Marble Mountain, train them because they have no combat experience, and the rest will stay at battalion until they can get a little used to what's going on. He says, you guys are going to go out on Operation Hastings. I think maybe there was a platoon of tanks out there. I didn't even know what company it was. You know, Gil went where he went, Bruce went where he went, and I went where they told me to go. Every night we got hit. It was bad. We had casualties. Tankers were injured. There was a platoon of tanks. And it was probably maybe 2 companies of infantry. And all we do is like on this northerly course. Different place every day, different place every night. Got hit every night, got hit a lot of times during the day. Short crewmen. We finally got replacements in. And I thought this was criminal, what they did. Now, the crews that were there were pretty experienced. They knew what they were doing, but there was a lot of missing people. And they brought up these new guys, newbies, and they were never on a tank before. Never on a tank before. All you could do is hide them at night underneath the tank, you know, and because you're going to get either going to get themselves killed or you're going to get everybody killed.
Right.
I thought it was criminal doing that. That was for, I don't know, probably a month. I was out there. Didn't even know where the hell I was at times. There was no maps on the tank. I said, there was a tank commander. I said, where, you got to get some maps.
Right.
He said, we're just following online during the day. I said, you got to get some maps. I think they had any. So we had one really bad night. There was like, I think one tanker was wounded, and there was about 5 infantry. This was just when we're set in at night. 5. 5 infantry were killed. And there was a forward observer killed. But it was like for 4 or 5 hours straight.
Wow.
Firing back and forth, back and forth. You know, we're in like a semicircle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like going through the trees, it's exploding. There's RPGs ricocheting. But the next day, about 11 o'clock in the morning, I hear a guy calling my name, Sergeant Tyson, Sergeant Tyson. I'm over here. He said, man, I've been looking all over for you. I says, how'd you get in? He says, I got your orders. I got your orders right here. I says, did you get here on an Amtrak? He said, yeah. I says, is it still here?
Yeah.
No, he says, that was hours ago. He says, I had a hard time finding it.
Hmm.
So I run down to see the company commander. He was the first lieutenant. I says, Lieutenant, is there any Amtrak's coming in? You got any medevacs coming in or anything?
Hmm.
I said, I got my orders. I says, I want to get out of here. He's there. Well, tanker, if you want to get out of here tonight, you're going to have to walk. I said, I'll walk. I said, I don't know where the hell I'm at. Nobody's got a map. So I go back up and my replacement's there. And he goes, man, he's telling me, like, took me aside. He says, man, he says, I'm scared. He says, crewmen were telling me what happened last night. Everybody's people getting killed. I said, yeah, it'll probably happen tonight too. So the tank commander was at a meeting. He comes back and it was like getting near dusk. I said, and he wasn't there yet. I says, look, does he have a watch set up? I says, get up there on the watch. And I said, they're going to hit us anytime.
Mm-hmm.
The tank commander come up, and now you got to remember now, I already got my orders.
Right.
In a call to Gunny Farmer. And he finally called me back. I didn't even know what tank I was on. He says, I said, what's the number of this thing? He says, it's Bravo 2-1 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he did know that. It was a new guy too. And so he called me back. I said, Gunny, I says, now how the hell are we going to get out of here? I bet the other guy, I don't even know where they're at. He said, well, you got a little wise with that guy who was in charge of all the rotations. He says, you're lucky you're getting out of here at all.
Wow.
So then the corporal saying, I'm really scared, man. I said, look, I'm scared too, man. I said, I've been scared since I got over here.
Mm-hmm.
I says, but you were just home for 30 days. They took that 30 days leave and then you had to come back for a whole tour. I said, you have a whole tour to do now. I said, I'm not trying to make it feel bad, but this war is really getting bad, really getting bad. And I'm glad I get the hell out of here. All I got to get through is one night. And by that time, the tank commander was back, and I said, look, would you mind if I took over your tank tonight? I says, this is, I hope, is going to be my last night here, and I ain't going to be sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
He says, yeah, no problem. So we put the new guys underneath with the tank, with the infantry radio cord under with them, you know, try to give him a grease gun. I said, did you ever fire a grease gun? He said, no, just our M14 and the 45s. Not M14s, M16s they had by then. So, all right, don't take the grease gun. I said, it's got a fixed firing pin. You can't half load it, it'll go off. And you'll probably shoot the tank commander through the head or something. So just go underneath, take the cord with you, and take your pistols. I says, you dig it deep and you'll be okay. Right? Yeah, fingers crossed. So that night, now he had the new searchlight on there with the infrared.
Okay.
which I was really glad, because that came in so handy so many times, you know, because I'm on the watch. I'm going to stand watch by myself the whole night.
Hmm.
Tank commander was loading, and then the new gunner was gunning. He was a gunner before. Knew what he was doing. And so we took fire from the rear. Rockets, mortars, RPGs. A couple ricocheted off the top of the tank and just exploded into the jungle trees out in front of us. The infantry are firing. They're firing rockets back. And I just am firing HE and canister, one right after the other, right watching for the flashes of their gun tubes. And most of the fire was coming from our rear. They got word that another tanker got wounded, and they had two infantry were killed so far. But I knew at 3 o'clock there was going to be an infantry patrol out to our left front. It was like the northeast. I think it was looking northeast, if I can remember correctly. And they'd be there at 3 o'clock, and we were allowed to fire it all forward.
Okay.
So, okay, all I got to do is make it to 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching, and then every once in a while we get fire from the front, or we get fire coming in back from the rear. I think I said there was already one tanker and one infantryman wounded. Suddenly quiets down. I just got the infantry and I'm watching, right? Watching binoculars. You know how eyes light up?
Mm-hmm.
Like a light bulb.
Right.
And if they look your way, there's a dead giveaway. On quiet nights, the crickets would be a good indicator. If you couldn't hear crickets, and you knew somebody was around. So I'm just traversing the turret real slow, looking through the binoculars, the infrared scopes, and I see like 6 pairs of eyes. I says, man, that's like 6 big lizards or nothing. That's got to be the enemy. I bet you they're waiting to ambush us. Surprise attack. So I raided the tank next to me. I told the crew, I says, get ready. We're going to fire within 3 seconds. Canister and loader. Put HE in right away, and then another followed by another canister in. Bam, 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 bam. Machine gun fire. Quiet. Smoke cleared. No more eyes. That's okay. See you in the morning whether I got a good eye or an ass. So anyway, I made it. And the next morning, once daylight came, I went down, saw that company commander again. He says, you still trying to get out of here, tanker? I'm there, yeah. Trying. He's there, look. And he got no supplies this morning, but there is a medevac coming in about 5 minutes, right in the center of this CP. And if you want to get out of it, you better be on it. So medevac flies in. We put 2 bodies on, and I think there was 3 wounded. I get in. We fly to Charlie Med. I help them get the wounded in. Put the 2 body bags on the gurney they took inside. And I told the crewman, the crew master, whatever they call that guy. It was Sergeant E5 or an E6. I says, you didn't even ask me why I'm on here. He's there. I says, I got my orders. I'm going home. He goes like this. Then he tells the pilot, and the pilot goes, He said, what time's your plane leave? I said, 1400 today. And it was around maybe 1000.
Hmm.
I said, I got to get to Da Nang Air Base. He says, you're going home. Don't worry about it. We'll get you there. We'll get you there. He says, we're going to make a mortuary run. And he says, we're going to drop you right where your plane is. I says, okay. So he gives me a couple bottles of water and I go sit down in the shade. They come out. They come out of the dispensary there, or whatever the heck it was, and they had a couple deck brushes and a couple buckets of water, and they threw a bucket of water in that chopper and started cleaning the bottom with the deck brushes, the deck, and then threw the other bucket of water in, and all the blood and guts come out, and I'm there. All right, I've seen enough blood here. I went over in a shady spot and sat down and drank the other bottle of water. But I guess we waited about another hour or so. And then they came out and they had 2 gurneys with 2 body bags on it. And I helped them put that on there. I helped them tie them down. They gave me a strap or clamp thing to strap myself in, and we took off. Right. So it was only about maybe 10-minute flight at the most from Marble Mountain to Da Nang Air Base. And we landed, and I had seen the mortuary a couple other times. We came through the base, and it was a giant Butler building, and they had all of these silver caskets lined up from the ground, looked like they're all the way up to the ceiling. They had the 2 big doors were open, and a tow motor came out pulling a trailer, and he pulled right up to us. So we took the bodies and we took them off one at a time off the helicopter and put them on the trailer. And then the crew chief and I just sat back and we saluted. I says, they're going home, dead. I says, I'm going home, alive. Crewman says, and a tear started down my face. And I looked at him and he says, and there's tears running down his face. He's there, come on, brother. I says, their job's done here and so is yours. Now, just remember them as the unfortunate sons. And that's where I got my name from my book. Get back on, flies sideways for maybe 4 minutes, lands. I see a big Northwest Orient 707 jet with a big line of military, looked like they were starting to board it. I thanked them guys, saluted them, grabbed my WP bag, ran down the end of the line. The first 2 guys I see are Gil and Bruce. Yeah, they're Tice. We came here in a 5-ton. You come in on a helicopter like a general. We were so happy to see each other. 2 of the greatest guys, Gil and Bruce Heseltine. I mean, I had my cut-off shorts, half-cut sneakers, filthy, dirty beards, old cover on my head. Gil with no cover, but both all had flak jackets or shoulder holsters on with the 45s. Mm-hmm. Bruce with a ripped cover. The 3 raggedy ass Marines, I'll tell you. And I see all these guys, they're all like in starchies. I'm there, starchies. He said, where'd you guys come from? Bruce says, there's a war going on here. You were. But they were all neat, and clean, and shaved.
Hmm.
I said, "When did you guys get here?" He says, "Well, but some were here a week, some were here for 10 days." Well, I've been here for like 5 minutes.
Wow.
So they wouldn't let us board with the flak jackets or our pistols, of course. I hated to give that up.
Hmm.
But that was my bizarre exit into Vietnam.
Joe, I got to thank you. The stories that you retold today, just really, really incredible. Humbling experience that you had to go through, and an honorable one at that. I'd be remiss if I didn't notice the stars and bars on that United States cutout with that eagle, gleam, and anchor prominently displayed there, and the memory wall behind you as well.
Yeah. Well, this is I have to send you some pictures of my memorial wall up in the Pocono Mountains. This is
Please.
a townhouse apartment here. That was a gift from my wife.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. As are you, my friend. Take a moment to thank the viewers. It is through you and your support of the channel that the channel gains and maintains its momentum. To the subscribers, thank you so much. You are really the ones that are fueling this channel so that more and more people get to see these amazing stories. If you've not already done so, please do subscribe. Hit the notification bell for new episodes. And Joe, I thank you. This once again has been an incredible experience and one that I truly value. And those stories that you told are ones that just remarkable, incredible stories. So I thank you for coming on.
I thank you. I salute you, Major.
Thank you, sir. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.